What's up, guys? I'm back. This is Ben, formerly known as 2020 Election Predictions. I'm changing my name to Ben's Election Predictions, obviously because it's 2021. And in today's video, I'm going to have a very, very early prediction of the 2024 presidential election, and I'm going to have the hypothetical candidates be Ron DeSantis and Kamala Harris. If we look over to predict it, Ron DeSantis is narrowly winning. He is at the price of 24 cents above Donald Trump, the leading candidate, with Donald Trump and Nikki Haley following. And then if we look at the Democratic presidential nominee, Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are pretty close. I agree with this right now that I do think Kamala Harris is going to be the 2024 nominee pretty confidently. In the Republican field, I mean, I think Ron DeSantis is a very big contender. But it's there's a long time. A lot of things are going to change. But I do think Ron DeSantis and Kamala Harris both are fairly likely. And just to remind you earlier, I did have the most accurate presidential election. These were the results. And if we just move over, this was my prediction. So the only two states that I got wrong were North Carolina and Georgia. I flipped them, and I ended up only being one electoral vote off. So I predicted 305 for Biden Harris, and they got 306 because I just flipped North Carolina and Georgia. But all right, let's get into the nitty gritty. I don't want to brag about myself. I mean, I saw that Red Eagle and Let's Talk Elections had some great predictions too. They're obviously a lot bigger than me, and they've kept on doing videos, but I want to get back, see if there's any interest. So one thing that I would like to point out is so you see that the electoral counts are different. So I mean, just some things like Florida and Texas gained some electoral votes as people are moving into those states that they're growing, and some of these other states. Let me think. I can't think of them off the top of my head. Like West Virginia lost a couple electoral votes. Michigan, and some other ones here. But let's fill out the safe blue states. So I think Kamala Harris, I think she could be a strong candidate, but I think she has a lot of the same weaknesses that someone like Hillary Clinton might have. If you look at the polling, she isn't that likable compared to some of the other Democratic candidates. I'm just kind of filling in some things right here. I do actually think that New Jersey and Connecticut could be in the likely blue stage. I do think Ron DeSantis might be able to appeal to maybe the more suburbanites in these states better than Donald Trump. Moving on, let's fill in all the red states. I do think Utah and Montana will be safe. We'll have the second district be a toss-up for now. Let me see the solid South, excluding Georgia, as we saw in 2020. Let's see, am I missing anything here? And we can actually fill in. So I do think that Iowa and Ohio, I mean, these states that are moving to the right, I don't think Ron DeSantis is going to do as well as Donald Trump did in 2016 and in 2020. I mean, you can see he went between 8 and 10 points, and he did around the same in 2020, even though the polls had it very close. I do think Ron DeSantis is still going to win the state probably between 5 and 6 points. Okay, so right now we're at 159 to 170. Oops, I forgot the state of Illinois. That will definitely make a big difference. And West Virginia. Excuse me, I'm a little rusty coming back. We can see 189 for Kamala Harris and 163 for Ron DeSantis. I don't want to speculate about running mates. Obviously, it's very far to do this out. But let's kind of go first with the lean blue states. So I do think that New Hampshire is going to be lean blue. In the 2020 election, it was definitely more kind of in the likely Biden category, which actually surprised me. I thought it was going to be closer. We see in 2016 it was very close. I do think Ron DeSantis will be able to appeal to maybe some of the suburbanites better than Donald Trump. But I mean, I think the shift is pretty significant. I do think it shows higher turnout in 2020, obviously for and against Donald Trump. I do think that the turnout in 2024 is going to be lower just because we saw, I mean, the highest turnout in 2020, I mean, since like the 1930s, I think turnout is going to down is going to go down. I think if Donald Trump isn't on the ticket, and I think in theory this would actually help the Republicans. And yeah, I don't see as many Democrats turning out for Kamala Harris, and same thing on the Republican side. But I do think overall this would help the Republicans. So, moving on to Minnesota, this is a state that Joe Biden won by a pretty significant margin in 2020 by 7 points. I do think that Ron DeSantis can do a little better, probably in the Minneapolis suburbs, like I was saying. I don't know if Ron DeSantis is going to have kind of the same a appeal that Donald Trump kind of had with the kind of like white working class men, but we saw in 2020 that didn't even matter kind of in the Rust Belt. He lost these states. And the one group that he actually did worse with was non-college educated white men. I mean, he picked up votes with blacks and Hispanics, but that's one category where Biden actually did better, and I think that's one reason that the election was tilted towards. I mean, also there's a lot of demographic groups. Turnout was higher. Anyway, I'm rambling right now. And then Virginia, I do think will be a lean blue state. So these would all represent some improvements from Ron DeSantis. I do think in the Nova area that Ron DeSantis would do better than Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump would just like drain the swamp, blah blah blah. And I do think Ron DeSantis, if he were to run, would try to employ kind of the same type of rhetoric, but I don't think it would be as divisive, and it would be kind of a smarter, more disciplined Trumpism. So I mean, Trump was more of a loose cannon. I think Ron DeSantis would be a little bit more of a controlled cannon. And then some other states, I do think New Mexico is going to be lean blue, and same with Nevada. I think these states are pretty similar on some fronts. So I mean, Biden won New Mexico by almost 11 points. I do think that, I mean, we saw this in Florida. I think that Ron DeSantis would be able to appeal to Hispanics a lot better. And I mean, even though on the presidential level, this was kind of more lopsided, if we look at it in the Senate, it was actually a lot closer. And this was also a lean state. So, I mean, I do think that New Mexico definitely could be a likely, but for the sake of now, I don't think that Kamala Harris is going to have a very good appeal to the Hispanic population. I think this is one effort that the GOP and I think that especially Ron DeSantis can do in 2024. So I think that will be a place that you see the Republicans going after. So moving on, kind of going into the lean Republican states, I do think that Texas is going to be a lean Republican state. We can see that in 2020. It was just very nearly a likely red state. I think as we see more and more people move to Texas from California, it's going to shift a little bit to the left, but not by that much. I mean, we saw that Donald Trump picked up a lot of Hispanic support in Texas, and I do think that Ron DeSantis is going to continue to do that. And going into Florida, I was really conflicted. I mean, I think this could even be a likely red state just because it's Ron DeSantis' hometown. I do think that he's going to win re-election in 2022 by maybe even close to double-digit margins. But I think on the presidential level, we've seen this throughout the history. I do think that Ron DeSantis will probably win the state between 4 and 6 points. Right now, I'm winning on the lower end. We saw Donald Trump won the state by over 3 points, which I think surprised a lot of people. It surprised me. But there's that. And also, I left out Maine here. I do think that Maine is going to be a lean state. And just to fill in the congressional districts, I think this is what it's going to look like overall. Okay, so moving on, right now you can see we have 236 for Ron DeSantis and 229 for Kamala Harris. And let's go into the tilter. So I do think that the election is going to be decided in the 5 states that are remaining here. So first, I want to go to Arizona and kind of going off of what I said about earlier. I do think that Ron DeSantis is going to increase Hispanic support for the GOP. We saw in Florida. I mean, just from 2016 to 2020 in the Miami-Dade County, we saw that. I think when Ron DeSantis runs for re-election in 2022, that is a theme we're going to see. I mean, if you remember, he just very nearly won in 2018, but I think we've seen his approval rating go up. He's handled COVID very well, and he's kind of a strong figure that is very close to Trump. So if Trump doesn't run, I do think Ron DeSantis could run. So I do think is going to be a GFP flip if these are the candidates. If there's different candidates, I do think we could see Arizona continue to go blue. Next up is Georgia. So, I mean, Joe Biden very, very nearly won the state in 2020. I do think it's going to go back to the Republicans in 2024. 2022 is going to be really interesting on the governorship level. I think it's a pure toss-up with Brian Kemp on the ballot, who Trump kind of bashed. But in 2024, if it's Ron DeSantis versus Kamala Harris, I mean, Georgia's very hard to predict. I mean, with the changing voting laws, with Stacey Abrams and her insane turnout machine, there's a lot of variables that could go in here, but I mean, Biden only won the state by a few thousand votes. We can see here by like 12,000 votes. And I do think Ron DeSantis will be able to appeal to kind of the people in the Atlanta suburbs more, but still keep that rural turnout high. And it's close to Florida. I don't know how much crossover there will be with the Panhandle and maybe southern Georgia, but I think that could help him as well. Then lastly, going into Wisconsin, I mean, this is a state that's had Republican governors. It's had Republican senators. I do think that Wisconsin, out of the Rust Belt, kind of is more to the right. Um, and I mean, we saw in 2020. I mean, it was the closest state. I mean, it was within 1 percentage point out of all the Rust Belt. And I do think that Ron DeSantis can flip this state. I don't know if his appeal to kind of the white working class will be as well, but I think he can pick up some votes, let's say, in kind of the urban areas and in the suburbs, like I've been saying, like a broken record. In the state of Michigan, I think Michigan will be between a lean and a tilt. I think that this is a state that the Republicans are going to be going after aggressively, and I think like in 2016, they might think that Kamala Harris kind of has it on lock. So I think this could be between 1 and 2 percentage points. I think very easily it could be a win state, so I was really conflicted here. And then lastly, going to Pennsylvania, I do think Pennsylvania is just going to be a pure toss-up. Just depending on the day, it could go either way. For right now, I'm going to have it in the tilt blue column. And as you can see, I think the 2024 race is going to be very, very close between Ron DeSantis and Kamala Harris, if that's the hypothetical matchup. Oh, also, I think Ron DeSantis is going to win here. We see it's 275 to 263. And one thing before in this video that I would like to point out, if this is kind of the same thing, oh my gosh, I also messed up here. I do think that North Carolina is going to be a lean Republican state. Obviously, not a safe state there. You can see I'm still getting used to being back. But one thing that is interesting to see is as we see the electoral college change, obviously after every 10 years, there's a census. And so the different states get allocated more or less votes. We can see that if this were the same reality in kind of the 2016 or 2020 election, you can see that it would be very, very close. But we can see that this electoral vote allocation actually helps the Republicans. And that's mainly from Texas and Florida. They pick up 3 votes respectively, so 6 in total. And then in the other states, it's kind of a wash. So there you have it. I know this video has been a lot longer than I wanted to, but I had a lot to say. Give this video a like and let me know what you want to do on future videos, and share this video with other people if you want to keep this channel going, because, I mean, I kind of stopped the train off the election after I was losing views, but I really want to keep it going. I really enjoy doing this, so give this a like, share it with your friends, and leave a comment too. Thanks, guys.